Hello there. The people of Britain are waking up and walking away from this illusion of democracy foisted upon them by the so-called elites. Elites who are more closely allied with Jimmy Savile than they are with anyone worth naming of integrity, because these people have no integrity. Just look at how they have handed this once great country over to a newly imported demographic, and never forget the medical procedure they coerced the masses to take, just so they could keep the freedoms fought for by previous generations. What an utter mess. This country, led by buffoons and criminals, is meandering helplessly into a future mire of totally sectarian politics, if not worse. And what makes it even worse is that our ruling buffoons are advised by the lefty woke of the woke civil servants, who seem to think that they should run this country, and probably already do. And our ruling buffoonery meekly takes their advice and moves on to the next photo opportunity, leaving the woke civil service to actually run the country for them. Yes, and run it into the ground. All the while we see a huge swathe of our, brightest and best, if that's what you want to call them, occupying the lawns of their now discredited seats of learning, pontificating about stuff they seem to have little knowledge of, while doing their anti-Semitic best to turf the Jews out of their spaces. They obviously have absolutely no grasp of history, and they're meant to be the bright ones. And it's these brightest and best that will soon be working their way up the establishment's greasy poles of the civil service, the police and the non-governmental organisations to replace the woke activists that already infest those organisations. And the lib-lab-con-green uniparty system feeds the whole edifice with all the tax money it demands to do ever less with ever more of our cash. Yes, those that we pay to serve us spend more and more of their time training each other in diversity, equality and inclusion ideology, rather than in being productive by engaging in their day jobs. And by the time they're trained up, they then spend the rest of their time productively not helping ordinary people, especially if they're white males, but proving their DEI credentials by helping everyone else, especially newcomers. And with net immigration at such high levels, you get the idea where all the money is being channeled. It seems that the people who vote and pay the bills are only there to give our political masters, the civil service, the fig leaf of democracy while paying for all their follies. But the British people are wising up, and you have to wonder how far behind the Irish we Brits are on this journey of discovery. Discovering that there are a growing number of politicians whose interests lie in the future of Gaza and the destruction of Israel, rather than in the direct needs of their constituents here in the UK. Discovering that the cause for this lies somewhere within the sustained and high levels of inward migration. Discovering that there is still a large vein of anti-Semitism that runs within those on the left, as illustrated by the antics of the woke lefty uni students in Oxford and Cambridge. Discovering that the country now has an openly two-tiered police service where you can parade about the place supporting a proscribed group like Hamas, but where you can be threatened with arrest for being openly Jewish or openly English. A police service that, like the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir the Neela Starmer, will bow before the supporters of a foreign criminal thug while they riot, but physically attack those wearing the flag of St George at the first opportunity on the basis that they wanted to walk down the road. This is not the way to build trust, other than with a minority that wants to dictate our foreign policy, that is. The people are discovering that the police are more interested in non-crime hate incidents than in clearing the shops of shoplifting thieves who only help fuel inflation. The people are finding it ever harder to get a GP appointment, unless they can afford to go private, of course. The people are discovering that the UK establishment does not work for them. The people have discovered the establishment works for other powerful forces and is using the people to pretty much fund their own destruction. Fewer and fewer people every day trust their politicians and what they say. The people have discovered that a few politicians resigning or crossing the floor to another party is minor political party point scoring for an avid Westminster-based mainstream press, but has no real value or meaning. The people view it in the same way as rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic, because that's what the UK resembles right now. The people have discovered that the establishment uniparty wants to destroy the whole UK economy with its single-minded drive to net zero, despite the piddling amount of emissions we actually produce. Mainly because we've offshored so much of our manufacturing base. Just look at our steel industry for a start. In fact, a recent global survey of 53 countries by the Alliance for Democracy's Foundation showed that many European countries have seen a sharp rise in the share of people who say that reducing immigration should be a top government priority, while at the same time respondents said that their interest in fighting climate change was falling. Very interesting, but very, very predictable given current events. The people are realising that the only answer the establishment has to our myriad problems is open borders. But that has more to do with the international standing and reputation of our lords and masters, who want to please their international WEF and UN mates while they attend all those grandiose events, rather than have anything to do with the needs of the plebs that pay their wages. GDP and GDP per capita have flatlined, despite the claims that diversity will be our saviour. Because all we've done is put an economic system in place that turns unemployment into long-term sickness, and encourages early retirement to turn many potentially productive people to early retirement and economic inactivity, while importing cheap labour. What a mess. And the people have realised that the Tories are useless, that they've completely lost the plot and need removing. But they also realise that Labour is no better. As many pundits point out, it isn't that Labour is increasing its support. The truth is that the Tories have lost support. And that support is either sitting at home and not voting, or being thinly spread about other parties. And should Labour get into government, it won't be long before the people find out what socialism really means for them. For starters, the public sector unions will expect Keir Starmer to shower their members with more tax money in reward for less work. And the cost of increasing all the welfare payments will be eye-watering. The national debt, which is already rocketing, will go into afterburner mode, and taxes will have to be increased. I can see the next Labour administration lasting little more than a couple or 3 years before calling in the IMF and a general election. A general election where the Labour Party will have changed the rules to allow just about anyone from just about anywhere who lives here over the age of 16 to vote in it. And this, I think, is the point at which the new and growing sectarian nature of our politics will explode in our faces, unless the people have dealt with it first.